What's up and welcome back to another video, guys. Now, throughout my childhood, I played my fair share of Star Wars games from varying different consoles and different times, and I do have to say some are definitely better than others. However, there was no doubt that they were a huge part of my childhood, so today I'm going to be paying tribute and revisiting some of my favorite Star Wars games throughout my childhood and building them in LEGO. So without further ado, let's get right on into this video. The first game that I want to tackle in this video is Star Wars: The Clone Wars Republic Heroes. Releasing in 2009, it was a single and co-op game where you can play as either the Jedi or the clones, and you would have to complete missions. I think there were like 40 levels. I remember this game being a lot of fun, but also having its fair share of bugs and issues, making it hard to complete some of the levels. As for the build, I think most of the maps in this game were very basic and very bleak, given the low graphics, and also just the main focus was the actual fighting between the clones and the droids. So that is what I'm going to be focusing on mainly for this mock. However, I am going to still try and incorporate as much detail as I can. I started by working on the wall, as it's going to end up being the main focal point of this mock. Once I got the slanted texture that I wanted and got it to be structurally sound, I went in adding some details as well as a doorway. I tried to get a nice overall shape and make it look good overall. Then I moved on to adding in my tiling. Now, being something that I wasn't really sure how I wanted to position my minifigs and other detailing on later, so I had to keep a nice ratio of tile to stud just so I could put minifigs and other details wherever I wanted after I finished. This was getting a little bit tedious adding all of these studs, but after a good amount of work, it got done, and I tried to add a bit of variation just to give some hills and stuff, even though on the map of the game it's not like that. After I finished up all of the detail and stud work, I then moved on to adding in my minifigs. I added in a bunch of clones and also our heroes being Anakin and Obi-Wan, as they were in the game and some of the most fun characters to play. I added in a working door, and then I added in the droids and the rest of the minifigs. The first mock is completed. The clones, as well as Anakin and Obi-Wan, are on a mission to push through the droid blockade, but for every droid they take down, two more appear, and I also included one of the iconic never-ending doorways just full of droids from the game. You keep killing the droids and they keep coming out of the door, and sometimes the game glitches and the levels would go on endlessly because you just, I don't know why that happened, but it made for some fun times, I guess, of just killing droids endlessly and not being able to complete the level. But nonetheless, this mock was a lot of fun to build. Once again, a very simple one. There wasn't really looking at the levels and all of trying to remember back for what to think of to build. I remembered all of the levels being fairly plain and basic, just like this, with the design of the maps. So that's what I tried to portray here. I kept up having some different little barricades for the clones to go behind, because that was a big part of the game, was playing behind the cover, so you don't get shot by the droids. And then you have your heroes up front, and Anakin and Obi-Wan taking on the front of the attack, and like I mentioned earlier, the doorway that is built into this wall where all of the droids keep spawning in from. I think this actually turned out better than I thought. I had no clue what I was going to do, just given how basic this would have to be. I wanted to make it as interesting as I possibly could, and I didn't know how I was going to do that, but I do actually really like this wall design that I ended up going for. I think it definitely adds some depth and makes this mock look a bit better. And then on the clone side, I had a lot more clones at first, but remembering back to the game, you really only had a handful of clones on your mission at a time. You didn't have like a whole army or anything like that, and I think that I portrayed that pretty well. I wish that I had done a little bit of variation in the grounding just to make it look a little more interesting. However, the levels were primarily flat. There weren't hills or anything. And then coming along to the back, this isn't a mock that you're supposed to see from the back, let's just say. It's not very supported, not very pretty from back there, but we'll keep it to the front. And overall, I'm fairly happy with how this mock turned out, and I think it does portray Republic Heroes pretty well. The next game that I want to visit is my personal favorite Star Wars single-player game, being The Force Unleashed. Releasing in 2008, it is a single-player campaign game where you play as Galen Merrick or Star Killer, and you go through a series of missions. Just a very fun game, in my opinion. If you have not tried it, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. A bit buggy, given that it is fairly old, but still a very fun game. So let's get on with this mock. Originally, when I was planning out this video, the scene that I wanted to do was Starkiller versus Vader, where he actually takes him down in an alternate ending for the game on PS2 and the Wii, or I think PS3, PS2 actually, yeah. And I think that just wouldn't really be the smart thing to do, because it takes place in Emperor Palpatine's throne room, and I already have the diorama, and I think it's actually a very accurate and very good depiction. So there's not really a reason for me to build a mock of this when I already have it. So we're going to go a different direction. I figured I'd throw this together though, because does work pretty well. This is actually how I display this. I don't display it how it came in the set. I display it like this with a tribute to the Force Unleashed. I want to get like a custom little thing to go right there instead of the 40th anniversary of Star Wars thing that was originally there. But we'll move on, and I think the actual mock that I want to do is another time where Starkiller and Vader do end up fighting, but we'll get on with that mock right now. The first thing I did was start building the railing. I unfortunately didn't have enough pieces to make this railing go all the way around, but I tried to keep it as good and as detailed as I could for the small part that it was going to be on. Then I started to go in with a bunch of different tiles. Now, normally when I do tile work, I end up doing a sort of mix between doing a lot of tiles and studs, but for this I wanted to go exclusively tiles and only put studs where I wanted to put minifigures on later on, and I think this turned out pretty good at the end. It's not something that I'm used to, but I'm very happy to try out new techniques when I'm doing these mock challenges. Once I finished up adding all of the tiling, I added in some details in the flooring with some small grate pieces. I just think that it made it look a bit better. Then I got into adding my minifigs and other details. I put Starkiller and Vader fighting, as well as some stormtroopers on the side, one being already taken down, and then I wanted to add some different variation in some different boxes. And this mock is done. I decided to go for a more simple and clean approach, and I think it turned out very good in that aspect. I am happy that this is what I ended up going for it instead of, having what I usually do with a lot more exposed studs. I think this looks a lot better and clean. Really fits that kind of diorama vibe. And overall, not really much to go through here. You have, the main focus being Starkiller taking on Vader, and then, the rest, the background kind of just blends in. It's just nice tiled off floors, some detail here and there, and then a small guardrail. I wish if I had the pieces, I would have done the guardrail going on the other side as well. I think that would have looked a bit better and pulled this together a little more. And then I have some small grate detailing on the floor, and then I decided to throw in just some stormtroopers because they were in the background of that scene, so I figured that would make it look just a little bit more filled out. And then so the back just wasn't empty and clean, or empty, just boring, I decided to throw in some nice little crates back here just to add some more, depth and more just stuff going on in the background, so it wasn't, because if they're not there, it's kind of just plain and open, and it looks a little sad, it looks a little basic, and I think adding these in just kind of adds that second layer that really pulls this whole mock together, in my opinion. Overall, very happy with how this one turned out. I think I depicted the scene pretty well, but now we can move on to our last video game, the one that I'm most excited for. And now moving on to the last game that I want to build in this video, being Star Wars Battlefront 2 from 2005, probably my favorite out of all of these Star Wars games by a fairly large margin. And what I'm going to be building is Operation Nightfall, better known as Order 66, a mission from the game. A lot of fun and probably the most iconic missions from Battlefront 2 from 2005. So without further ado, let's get right on into this mock. First, I put on this walkway up top just so I could have some different elevation in this mock to make it a bit more interesting. Then I moved on to tiling. It does take a while to get all of the tiles and the bricks down just in the way that I want so I can get minifigs, but after a bit of work, I was able to finish, and I left a lot of open area so I could add in some different details and some other stuff. Then I moved in and put on all of these different hollow little bookshelf kind of things that you see in the background. These were a pain to build with a bunch of studs, but once I finished all of that and finished off my tiling, I got to work putting all of the minifigs in, which was definitely the most fun part. I utilized my battle-scarred clone troopers that I like to use whenever I can because they are a lot of fun, and I think they add a lot to the mock. And right here, I just had a lot of fun putting this one together and putting all of the minifigs in some different areas. I put the clones all over, as well as a bunch of different Jedi. And the mock is done. This actually turned out a lot better than I thought. I really think that the battle-scarred clone troopers that I put together, just they add so much. Having to have those lightsaber wounds kind of be portrayed in it, just having them stabbing, it looks really good in my opinion, and I think it really brings this together. Because other than that, the rest of the mock is just a very kind of simple build. It's just the little hollow shells, and then it's just a big open, tan area. But I think all of the action is what brings this one together. There's not really any sort of story going on here. I just have a bunch of custom Jedi that I threw together. We've got Amagun D back there, a little Easter egg thrown in back there, calling back to the Ryloth series that I did just because I had them and I figured that the more Jedi, the better. And then I have a bunch of clone troopers all up here. And I also, up here, I have Anakin because I'm pretty sure, I'm not really 100% sure, but I think you could have played as Anakin in it. I'm not sure if you were just limited to the clones, but I'm pretty sure you could also be Anakin in this mission. I don't really remember. It's been like 10 years since I've played this game at all, but overall, I am very happy with how this turned out. I do wish that I did this area a little bit better. It was just, I was very limited in time and pieces, but I think just having the upper area does look good and it adds quite a bit. Overall, this MOC was a lot of fun to make. I think it would probably be my favorite from this video if I had to pick one, but let me know down below in the comments which one of these MOCs was your favorite, and if what games you want to see me build next, because I would be happy to make this a series. There are so many Star Wars games, so many very good Star Wars games too that don't get enough love, so I would be very happy to do more of these. So let me know down below in the comments which games you want to see me build next, and which one of these MOCs was your favorite. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay safe. Drew signing out.